Some wild berries are safe enough to eat straight off the bush. Others carry enough toxin to stop a human heart within hours. And the unsettling part is that some of the deadliest ones on Earth look almost identical to the berries in your fridge right now. There is no reliable color rule. The old advice that if a bird can eat it, you can too, is flat out wrong. Roughly 50,000 calls go to poison control in the United States each year over plant exposures, and bright, tempting berries are among the most common reasons. This is every wild berry, ranked from safe to deadly. Wild blackberry. If there is a single wild berry a beginner can learn to identify with complete confidence, this is the one. The fruit grows on thorny canes along hedgerows, forest edges, and roadsides across temperate North America and Europe, and its structure is unlike almost anything dangerous in the woods. Each berry is made up of dozens of tiny bumps called drupelets, all clustered together into one solid piece of fruit. When you pick a ripe blackberry from the cane, the pale inner core stays inside the berry, and the whole thing comes away full and heavy in your hand. That solid core is the fastest way to tell it apart from a black raspberry, which pulls away hollow, like a tiny cup. Both are safe, but knowing the difference is the kind of detail that separates careful foraging from hopeful guessing. The reason blackberries sit at the safest end of this list comes down to one fact. There is no toxic berry in North America that shares this exact combination of features. Foragers use a rule of 3 to confirm what they are looking at in the field: thorny canes, compound-toothed leaves, and a solid aggregate berry with the core still attached. If all 3 check out, it is a blackberry. Other dark berries do grow in the same hedgerows. Pokeweed clusters hang from thick magenta stems nearby. Nightshade berries droop in small groups just a few feet away. But none of them produce that distinctive bumpy aggregate fruit. The blackberry needs no trick to identify. The next berry on this list is nearly as safe, but it does ask you to check one small detail before you eat it. Wild blueberry. The blueberries in your grocery store are cultivated varieties, bred to be large, firm, and uniform. Wild blueberries are smaller, more intensely flavored, and grow low to the ground on twiggy shrubs across North America, in acidic soils, pine barrens, and boggy heaths. The fastest way to confirm you are looking at a real blueberry out in the wild is to flip the berry over and check the bottom. Every true blueberry has a 5-pointed star shape at the tip opposite the stem, formed by the leftover calyx of the flower it grew from. No commonly encountered toxic berry in the region carries this crown. That star is worth memorizing because several dangerous berries share a blueberry's general size, shape, and dark color. Pokeweed berries are a similar purple-black but grow on thick, fleshy magenta stems with a flat scar where the star should be. Virginia creeper berries lack the crown entirely, and in parts of Europe, deadly nightshade produces shiny black berries that have been mistaken for blueberries with serious consequences. In 2009, a woman ate 6 nightshade berries believing they were blueberries and ended up hospitalized with severe anticholinergic poisoning. The 5-pointed crown on a real blueberry would have answered the question in under a second. Native Americans ate and dried wild blueberries long before European contact, and today, the wild harvest remains a significant seasonal industry in Maine and across eastern Canada. The blueberry is safe and familiar, but the next berry arrived from the other side of the world and brought an entire industry with it: mulberry. The mulberry looks like a blackberry that someone stretched out lengthwise. It grows on large spreading trees rather than thorny canes, ripening from green to red to deep purple-black, and it has a reputation in cities for permanently staining sidewalks, car hoods, and anything else that sits underneath the canopy during summer. There are 3 main species. Red mulberry is native to eastern North America. Black mulberry comes from southwestern Asia, and white mulberry was brought from China, where it was cultivated for something that has nothing to do with food. White mulberry leaves are the only food source of the domesticated silkworm. The entire global silk industry, stretching back thousands of years, depends on the leaves of this one tree. According to Chinese legend, Empress Lei Zhu discovered silk around 2700 BCE, when a cocoon fell from a mulberry branch into her tea and began to unravel. The silkworm's scientific name, Bombyx mori, translates to silkworm of the mulberry. Every silk garment ever made traces back to these leaves. Ripe mulberries are perfectly safe to eat raw. They are sweet, deeply staining, and rich in resveratrol, the same compound found in red wine. But unripe green or white mulberries and the milky white sap from the stems tell a different story. They contain compounds that cause nausea, stomach cramping, nervousness, and in some cases mild hallucinations. The ripe fruit is food, the unripe fruit is not. That distinction, where the same plant can be safe or harmful depending on when you pick it, becomes a much bigger deal with the next berry. Elderberry. Walk into any pharmacy in North America or Europe and you will find elderberry on the shelves. Gummies, syrups, lozenges, and supplements, all made from cooked elderberries. The commercial brand Sambucol, developed by Israeli virologist Madeline Mumkwoglu, is one of the most widely sold antiviral supplements in the world. Hippocrates reportedly called the elder tree his medicine chest. Cooked elderberries are completely mainstream. They go into jams, wines, cordials, and pies across Europe and North America. But eat those same berries raw, straight off the bush, and you are swallowing something very different. Raw elderberries, along with the stems, leaves, and bark of the elder tree, contain cyanogenic glycosides, most notably a compound called sambunagrin. When the raw plant tissue is crushed and digested, those glycosides release hydrogen cyanide, and cyanide blocks your cells from using oxygen. Symptoms include nausea, violent vomiting, abdominal cramps, weakness, and dizziness. Cooking the berries at temperature for roughly 20 minutes and removing all stems and leaves destroys the glycosides completely, which is exactly why every elderberry product on the pharmacy shelf is heat processed before it reaches a consumer. The most documented case happened in Monterey County, California, in August of 1983. 11 people drank fresh elderberry juice at a gathering, and within 15 minutes, 8 of them were sick enough to be airlifted by helicopter to a hospital. One person was found in a barely conscious state. The juice had been made by crushing the berries together with their leaves and branches, and nobody had cooked it first. The CDC investigated and published the case. The difference between a health tonic and a helicopter evacuation was whether the plant material had been heated. Elderberry has earned a place in fiction too. In the Harry Potter series, the unbeatable elder wand is carved from elder wood. But in real life, elder demands a more practical kind of respect. The next berry on this list plays a similar trick, hiding danger in one part of the fruit while offering food in another. Chokecherry. The name sounds like a warning, and it partly is. The chokecherry is a small shrub or tree found across North America, from British Columbia to Newfoundland, growing along stream banks, in thickets, and at the edges of open fields. It produces hanging clusters of small round fruits that ripen from red to nearly black, and if you bite into one raw, the first thing you notice is an intense mouth-puckering astringency that dries your tongue and the inside of your cheeks almost immediately. That reaction is where the name comes from. The flesh of the chokecherry is not toxic. Indigenous peoples across the northern plains ate chokecherries for thousands of years and developed a preparation method that became one of the most important foods in the history of the continent. They pounded the whole cherries, pits included, into flat cakes, dried them in the sun, then mixed them with strips of bison meat and rendered fat to create pemmican. It was lightweight, calorie-dense, and lasted for years without spoiling. Pemmican sustained trade routes and winter survival across the northern plains for generations. But here is the critical detail. The pits, leaves, twigs, and bark of the chokecherry all contain amygdalin, a cyanogenic compound that releases prussic acid, which is hydrogen cyanide, when the tissue is crushed and digested. It is the same chemistry found in the pits of cherries, peaches, apricots, and bitter almonds, all members of the same genus, Prunus. The traditional drying process worked precisely because heat and prolonged sun exposure broke down the cyanide compounds before anyone ate them. Eating a handful of ripe chokecherries and spitting the pits is harmless. Cracking open and swallowing a large number of those pits is not, and from this point forward on the list, things get significantly more dangerous. If you are finding this useful, consider subscribing. More like this comes out every week. Pokeweed. This is one of the most culturally rich and deceptively familiar plants in North America, and also one of the most reliably dangerous to eat raw. Pokeweed grows up to 10 feet tall with thick, fleshy, magenta-colored stems, producing long, drooping clusters of glossy, dark purple berries that look startlingly similar to bunches of wild grapes. Children are the most frequent victims because the bright purple fruit and its deeply staining juice are genuinely attractive to pick up and taste. Every part of the pokeweed plant is toxic, with the root being the most dangerous and the ripe berries somewhat less so, though less toxic still means toxic. The primary compounds are triterpene saponins, and they cause severe gastrointestinal distress that is hard to mistake for anything else. Burning in the mouth, intense abdominal cramping, violent vomiting, and a distinctive foamy diarrhea that can persist for up to 48 hours. In more severe cases, blood pressure drops and convulsions follow. As few as 10 berries in a child has caused serious poisoning that required medical attention, and yet people eat it on purpose. Across Appalachia and the rural American South, the young spring shoots of pokeweed have been harvested for generations and prepared into a traditional dish called poke salad. The method is non-negotiable. The shoots are boiled, the water drained, then boiled and drained again at least 2 more times before serving. Skipping even one round of boiling has sent people to the emergency room. Pokeweed has left its mark on American culture in unexpected places. During the Civil War, soldiers wrote letters home using the vivid purple juice from the berries as ink. Dolly Parton has said she used crushed pokeberries as lipstick growing up in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. And in the laboratory, a protein extracted from the plant called pokeweed mitogen is still used by immunologists to stimulate B cells in research. But none of that changes the basic reality that raw pokeweed belongs nowhere near anyone's mouth. And the next berry on this list looks even more unsettling than it sounds. White baneberry. There is a berry growing in the shady hardwood forests of eastern North America that looks like it was designed to frighten people away from eating it. The plant produces clusters of porcelain white berries, each one marked with a single black dot at the tip, all sitting on thick, bright, almost fluorescent red stalks against the dark forest floor. The common name is doll's eyes, and the moment you see them in person, you understand exactly why. They look like a small handful of glass eyeballs staring back at you from the undergrowth. The word bane in Old English means poison, death, or ruin, and the name is earned. White baneberry belongs to the buttercup family and is closely related to monkshood, one of the most toxic plants in all of Europe. The berries cause severe burning in the mouth and digestive tract, and they carry a compound that acts directly on the heart muscle, slowing cardiac tissue in a way that can lead to respiratory failure and cardiac arrest. But here is what makes this plant unusual even among poisons. Despite decades of study, the specific molecule responsible for that cardiac effect has never been chemically identified. The effect is real and documented, but the compound itself remains unknown. It is one of those rare cases where the poison has outpaced the science trying to explain it. The conventional estimate is that roughly 6 berries can trigger serious symptoms, though that number comes from repeated field observation rather than controlled clinical trials. No confirmed human deaths from white baneberry have been recorded in the United States, though the closely related European species has killed children. The berries themselves are intensely bitter and acrid, which means they get spit out well before enough is swallowed to cause lasting harm. But the eerie appearance of this plant is enough to keep most foragers at a respectful distance. The final berry on this list carries no such built-in warning system. Deadly nightshade. The Latin name is Atropa belladonna, and both halves of that name are a warning. Linnaeus named the genus after Atropos, the eldest of the 3 fates in Greek mythology, whose sole job was to cut the thread of human life. Belladonna means beautiful lady in Italian, a reference to Renaissance women who squeezed the berry juice into their eyes to dilate their pupils, because wide, dark eyes were considered alluring. The plant gave them beauty. It also blinded and sometimes killed them. The berry itself is shiny, black, about the size of a small cherry, and it grows singly rather than in clusters, seated in a green star-shaped calyx on a bushy plant roughly 3 to 4 feet tall. It is native to Europe, North Africa, and Western Asia, and has naturalized in parts of the northeastern and northwestern United States. What makes deadly nightshade more dangerous than any other berry on this list is the taste. Most toxic berries are bitter or acrid enough that people spit them out reflexively. Nightshade berries are genuinely sweet. Children eat them willingly. Adults have mistaken them for wild blueberries and cherries. As few as 2 to 5 berries can kill a child. 10 to 20 can kill an adult. The toxins are tropane alkaloids, primarily atropine, scopolamine, and hyoscyamine, and they work by shutting down the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of the body that handles rest and digestion. The resulting symptoms are so consistent that emergency room doctors memorize them as a 5-part rhyme. Hot as a hare, blind as a bat, dry as a bone, red as a beet, mad as a hatter, dilated pupils, flushed dry skin, racing heart, hallucinations, convulsions, and in severe doses, death. Nightshade has a documented history as a weapon. According to Scottish historian George Buchanan, Macbeth's soldiers poisoned an invading army by lacing food with nightshade during a truce. Roman sources describe empresses using it to dispatch emperors. It was a poison disguised as hospitality, sweet enough to be accepted without question. But here is the twist that makes this plant unlike anything else in the natural world. The same compound that kills, atropine, is also one of the most essential drugs in modern emergency medicine. Atropine sits on every hospital crash cart on Earth, used to treat dangerously slow heart rates and as the frontline antidote to nerve agent poisoning. Scopolamine, another alkaloid from the same plant, is the active ingredient in the motion sickness patches worn on cruise ships and long flights around the world. And atropine eye drops still dilate pupils during eye exams today, the exact same effect women in Renaissance Italy were after 500 years ago. The deadliest berry on this list also gave modern medicine some of its most important tools. Wild berries sit on a full spectrum, and the distance between a safe snack and a trip to the emergency room often comes down to a single detail: a 5-pointed crown on the bottom of a blueberry, a solid core inside a blackberry. Whether someone cooked what they picked before eating it, color tells you nothing reliable. Birds eating a berry means nothing for human safety, and the only trustworthy approach is to confirm what you are looking at against multiple identifying features before ever putting it in your mouth.